Welcome to the new series from Performance Works International, Guest Practices. I'm Jeremy Blain, CEO of Performance Works International, and I'll be running a series of videocasts with special guests who have a story to tell from both business and life experiences. The conversations are designed to explore their journey, uncovering new ideas, innovations, and next practices that we can all learn from and be inspired by. For today's episode of Guest Practices, we focus squarely on women in leadership. The traditional domination of men in senior leadership positions is being challenged as female leaders continue to break down old barriers, prejudices, and gender diversity issues. There's still a long way to go, but we've seen at very senior levels, female leaders make the difference when tackling the pandemic. In Iceland, in Germany, in Finland, and of course Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, widely regarded as the best demonstration of strong leadership balanced with strong empathy, a key trait within human-centered leadership being demanded in business globally today. This brings me to my guest, Justina Mutale. Justina is founder and president of the Justina Mutale Foundation and its scholarship program for young women and girls from Africa to access tertiary education. Through the foundation, she advocates for gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. In 2012, Justina was named African Woman of the Year. She's a leadership expert, international keynote speaker, guest lecturer, and best-selling author of The Art of Iconic Leadership: Power Secrets of Female World Leaders, and co-author of Women on Corporate Boards: An International Perspective. Justina is also a recipient of the MANDELA 100 Prize and inductee of the World Book of Greatness. Justina leads and serves on various boards across the globe and has been honoured with numerous international awards and accolades for her outstanding leadership qualities. Hello and welcome to this episode of Guest Practices. I am so delighted to welcome Justina Mutale this week. Justina, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you so much for giving me such an opportunity to appear on your prestigious platform. I'm highly honored to be here. Thank you.
I am the honoured one, and I think we should start with you introducing yourself and your own journey as a leader, and what's made a difference in your career, your fabulous community support through the foundation you set up, and of course, your fantastic book, The Art of Iconic Leadership: The Power Secrets of Female World Leaders. Perhaps you can give us a little bit of a flavour.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I think I'm going to start with the book. My book was prompted by the fact that as someone in the feminist movement, it has always puzzled me to hear people say that young women and girls do not have role models to inspire them into leadership. Because growing up, I could identify a lot of female role models in my in leadership positions from my own family, and of course from my own family background, and of course from the wider world. So this is what prompted me to write this book, my book, if you can see it. And this is I actually wrote this book as a gift to the next generation women and who are the current young women and girls, to let them know that it is possible for them to lead as a female. In this book, which is titled The Art of Iconic Leadership: Power Secrets of Female World Leaders, I have chronicled the leadership journeys of iconic women leaders that have stood out for me over the ages, from the times of, for example, Catherine the Great and Cleopatra the Seventh, up to Margaret Thatcher in the UK, Golda Meir in Israel, Indira Gandhi of India, right up to Angela Merkel, Jacinda Ardern, and of course, Kamala Harris. I have, of course, included iconic African women because I am from Africa. And of those African women that have stood out for me, there are women like Winnie Mandela, who was the first wife of Nelson Mandela. Winnie Mandela held the fort for 27 years while Nelson Mandela was locked away in prison. Of course, I introduced other women that the world might have not heard of. For example, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, who was the first ever chairperson of the African Union. We have Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, who was the first ever female president in Africa. And of course, Joyce Banda, she was the first ever female president in Southern Africa. Then we also go recently to Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She's from Nigeria and has become the first ever African female director of the World Trade Organization in all its 25 years. The World Trade Organization has never had an African, and they've never had a female director general. So Ngozi Okonjo stands out there, and she is in my book. She is also featured in my book, of course, along with a lot of other women. You've got to get the book to learn about that. For me, my vision is to leave a legacy that can prepare our young women and girls with innovative and resilient mindsets that can make them withstand an ever-changing global landscape in the economic field, in the political field, in the social sphere, and of course in the environmental sphere. This is because I believe that every girl has potential, and that every girl should be given an opportunity to excel and to reach her highest potential. It is, in fact, my hope and my prayer that every girl can access quality education to enable her to reach her highest potential, which will make her to escape poverty and, of course, to live a fulfilling life, so that one day every girl can have the capability to effectively participate and contribute to the global economy and the development of the world on equal footing with her male counterparts. Well, coming back to my leadership journey, in some way you could say my leadership journey could be likened to a quote I have been seeing a lot on Facebook that says, "For all the windows that were closed to me, I am coming back to buy the building." Prior to finding my own organization, I worked in a very prestigious international and jet-setting organization. We traveled all the time. It's an international organization, of course. However, as an employee, I felt that my potential was somehow not fully stimulated, and that my contribution were not being given their due value. I left to create my own organizations, which have been a kind of offshoot of that larger organization that I worked for. And by founding my own organizations, of course, I became the master of the boardroom, which I didn't sit on while I was an employee. And I became the leader of these organizations. The first organization is the Positive Runway Global Catwalk to Stop the Spread of HIV and AIDS, which is a worldwide HIV/AIDS response campaign with presence in 6 continents around the world. And then to do with female leadership, of course, the Justina Mutale Foundation, for which I advocate for gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. Based on my very strong belief that quality education is paramount to the eradication of poverty and its feminization. So through this foundation, my foundation, I advocate for the retention and completion of tertiary education for girls by offering university scholarships to young women and girls from rural and disadvantaged communities in Africa to access tertiary education around the world. As a woman leader, of course, I lead and serve on several boards across the globe, in addition to serving as president, patron, trustee, director, board member, consultant, and of course, mentor to several other organizations. So that is my leadership journey. If I was to just talk about my leadership journey today, that is all that we could speak about.
Wow, it is inspiring, and it leads to think, where do you find the time, and is there anything that you don't do? It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And I love the fact that You know, the whole driving purpose behind this is to leave a legacy, to prepare young women and girls to be resilient, to drive that mindset and say, yes, you can make it, you can be a leader, you can change the world, you can contribute to the global and local economies. I think that's, you know, such strong words for young girls and women who are on their own leadership journey even now to hear. And I think before I come back to one of your points about who inspires you, I think the obvious question here is, because you do so much work in this area and more, of course, is to ask you this, is where do you think we are actually on the journey to a diverse, equitable, inclusive form of leadership globally, or locally, when we consider, for example, the ongoing battles of gender equality, of racial equality, what we've seen over the last year? Where are we on that journey in your view?
Jeremy, as a gender advocate and a feminist, I should say I am actually heartbroken how the way things stand at the moment, because we are still very far from achieving the diverse, equitable, and inclusive leadership. See, my heart bleeds even further when just a few weeks ago, I heard that the World Economic Forum said that because of COVID-19, it will take 136 years from now for the world to achieve the full gender equality in all spheres of life. See, as things stand, they will only have 25 women CEOs out of the 500 FTSE companies. And in the world, we have an average of only 19% women in parliament or political decision making, with only 7% women heads of state or heads of government. In a world that has 100, or the United Nations has a membership of about 193 countries. But so these are all very disappointing statistics for women. And when we look around in business, most companies up to today still have zero women on their boards. This is quite puzzling when you think that the world has 51% of the world's population is women or female. So our male leaders need to understand the importance of including women in leadership positions, and to ensure that both genders have a voice and that their perspectives are heard and taken into account, not just hearing. You don't just hear a voice, you've got to take into account those perspectives in your decision and of course policy making. Male leaders need to understand that different genders bring something different life experiences to the table. And to limit a business or an organization to one group of people or one gender who have the same life experiences, who think the same way, who believe in the same things in life, just takes away the creativity, the innovation, and the diversity of thought that is required in operating a business or an organization for its success. Of course, like I said, women make up 51% of the world population, and the world that can operate on half its human resource, half its economic potential, and of course, half its talents is one that is bound to fail. This is what men need to understand, that the world is bound to fail if we are only utilizing half of the human capital, half of the economic potential, and half of the human talents that the world has. See, the world is diverse for a reason. This is because as humans, we have to complement one another. This is why when you go to biblical times, God made man and woman. We also ought to embrace the world in its full diversity in all of our activities. To focus on one gender takes away the potential for growth, as I have said. We need to provide equal opportunities for better families and communities, and there where we can we can have a representative of an equitable society. You see, when you look around, if one gender is not heard, for example, where women go unheard, not only are the interests of that gender underrepresented, but also their valuable skills, ingenuity, resilience, and knowledge are unused. You are leaving out a lot of human potential. It is important that we raise the voices of women, or both genders, or all genders as they might apply in the world. At the moment, the United Nations is hoping that at the conclusion of the Sustainable Development Goals in 2030, the world can achieve what is called a 50-50 planet. And that 50-50 planet means that at every high-level decision-making table, you can have the perspectives of both genders or all genders that apply into the world. Yeah, and that would be brilliant, because we need to understand that the other gender brings, putting all genders together and understanding their perspective can bring absolute magic to the table.
You raise so many important points here, but I'm going to go back to something that you said initially as well, because it gives me a little bit of hope too, because the stunning data that you gave me here around the amount of years it's going to take us to have a genuinely equal society. And I think, you know, even greater when you add other diversity lenses onto this as well. I mean, the whole thing becomes even bigger, doesn't it?
Yes.
But gender diversity has been one of these kind of ongoing pieces of lip service that many male leaders have paid, and the danger is being inclusive and diverse but not being equitable. And I think that is your point there, is that having that equitable, if you're going to do this, do it right. Exactly. Is that, you know, have that equality there, make it equitable. And I do have actually a follow-up question, and a quick follow-up question, because as a male leader who I feel that I am more enlightened in this way, and I make the effort, but I feel that I can still do a lot more. What you call us to action in that last piece that you just mentioned. What are the one or two things that I could do that would make a really big difference and help you speed up this challenge?
Well, to speed up that challenge, because remember, at the moment, all the statistics I have given earlier, the male leaders hold the fort. They hold the power, so to speak. And if only they can realize the power that women have, that should complement their power. That this power needs to be complemented, just like the yin and yang, as the Chinese said. You need to bring it together in order to balance what needs to be done in the world, in order to balance the leadership journey of the world, in order to balance for this, what the United Nations is trying to achieve, the 50-50 planet. It all has to come together. That is the thing that male leaders need to understand.
I think the word balance is great, because you can add that to, you know, to diversity, to inclusion, to equity, and balance is a fourth big hitter there, I think, Justina. I think you're absolutely right. So maybe I can move on and kind of uncover a little bit about your inspirations here as well. You mentioned great female leaders from around the world and from Africa that many might not have heard of. Who are some great examples of female leaders now who inspire you and give you hope for the future?
Well, in fact, if there's anything, COVID-19 has presented us with I don't know how to call it, but I think it's a perfect example or scenario, because in one of the toughest years in the COVID-19, the year of COVID-19 from 2020 to where we are now, that has tested the mettle of every leader and every head of state or every head of government across the globe. You will find that it is in those countries that are led by women that have proved the far greater mettle in their response to the COVID-19 pandemic. In the management of COVID-19 at national level, women leaders have used their uncommon sense of natural instinct and natural wisdom to employ a different approach than that used by their male counterparts. You will see that when you read closely in tackling from the media reports, in tackling the virus, women leaders have utilized their sixth sense and of course their soft leadership skills and empathetic approach in order to deal with the virus. It has been reported in most of the media reports that right from the onset of the pandemic, for example, Angela Merkel of Germany stood up early and calmly told her countrymen the hard truth. She then proceeded to act proactively on that truth. The female president of Iceland also deployed the formidable power of technology to make her country a key case study in the true spread and fatality rates of COVID-19 with a massive and unrivaled testing tracking program. And in Taiwan, the female president, of course, once again, she decisively managed the situation to put up what CNN have called among the world's best responses. Of course, my star here is Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand. If I were to pick one person who's has truly stood out for me, it is Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand. She's of course also a millennial leader. She employed uncommon clarity and decisiveness to save her country from the storm of the COVID-19. But Jacinda Ardern just doesn't end there. What Jacinda Ardern as a female leader has done before, for example, when they had the terrorist attack, she, instead of using that to divide her country, she used that opportunity to bring her country together. She apologized to the group that was affected in their own language so they could understand her. She dressed up as they dress as the group that had been affected, the way they dress up. Of course, when she was again elected for a second term, she's got a cabinet, the most diverse cabinet. She got the deputy prime minister who is openly gay. She got a lot of women in her cabinet. She also got the first foreign minister as a woman, but also a minority from the Maori group. So this is the leadership that women bring forth, women like Jacinda Ardern, but of course a lot of other women if they are given the opportunity. And of course, to do with the COVID-19, in Norway, the country's female leader, she simply fell back on the power of love as a mother. You know, she fell back just on the power of love, and she had this innovative idea of using television to talk directly to the country's children to let them know what was going on. So when you look at this, you'll find that women's leadership, of course, including my own, is often guided by what would be called perhaps philosophical thought and the ability to apply what is called restive attention. You know, a situation is brought before you. You've got to consider that situation and then decide. You've got to have reasoned decision and a measured response to meet the need as applied in the case, you know, as women have applied in the case, for example, of raising children, raising families, raising communities, and of course, raising nations and humanity as a whole. So these women that I have mentioned here, and especially with Jacinda Ardern as a millennial leader and also as a female leader, have stood out for me as great role models, and they do give hope for the future of humanity. If there's anything that the COVID-19 can teach us, it's how women's leadership has been brought to the fore and how it has shown that women are capable of leading just as much as their male counterparts, or even better.
You know, these leaders that you mentioned are inspiration for many of us, you know,
Yeah.
not just for girls, not just for women. And I do often ask myself the question, what if we had that kind of powerful, more empathetic, human-centered leadership within businesses, but guiding by the right decisions, but doing
Yes.
it in a different way. And I think you called it soft leadership, but I
Yes.
think the word soft is wrong. It's power leadership for me.
It's power, actually. Yeah, it is
Yeah, it
a
is.
power.
There's nothing soft about it. These are the really tough things. In fact, I did a survey at the beginning of this year, and the number one trait coming out for as being the most important for leaders in the next decade is around empathy, EQ, and the ability to engage others. So very human-centered leadership traits. So perhaps this could be another accelerator post-COVID as we emerge out of it, for this championing of more equitable boardrooms, more equitable leadership, female leadership within our businesses, as much as what we're learning from politics. I think it's I think some great ones. And even in, you know, I'm in the UK now, I know you live in London too.
Yes.
We saw our debacle around test and trace,
Yes.
whereas many of us were calling for the government here to go to places like Iceland and secure the best practice from somebody who'd really kind of made a difference with
Yes.
this, rather than going on our own. And of course ours failed.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's no accident. So I mean, you know, you too, and I would say, you know, you're a champion of this, but you are an inspiring leader yourself. So when young girls come to you, Justina, and they say to you, you know, I want to set up my own business, I want to be a leader, what do you say to them to inspire them further and give them hope for the future?
Yeah, I do have a lot of those, and some of them just say, "Oh, I want to be a leader, or I want to do the same thing that you have done. I want to set up a foundation and things like." But the first and foremost important thing, number one, is one needs to recognize and acknowledge that they do have that leadership potential. Because if one is unsure, then they truly cannot be, they cannot be a leader. Like I said, I worked in a huge international organization in London, and I just walked off because I realized, you know, my ideas, my potential, my talents were not being fully utilized. So I had to walk out of there because I understood and recognized and knew my own leadership potential. So that is the first thing that they need to do. And also, one needs to identify their passion. They need to know what their passion and purpose is. What are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing into the world? What will keep you awake at night? What will make you jump out of bed and put some notes out? What is your passion? What can make you perhaps even go without breakfast just so that this thing is done? And you need to actually to strive to connect that purpose to the thing that you want to do, whether it's the organization that you are forming or the team that you intend to lead. And you always need to operate from that purpose, because purpose is the main source of energy from which leaders, for example, like myself, especially myself who are in the NGO or civil society, that is the purpose, is where a leader needs to put their strength to carry on when things become complex. Because in business and in running organization, in a leadership journey, there are all sorts of things that come up. But if you have purpose, you know the purpose, then you can go on. It doesn't matter what is happening, you still can carry on from that. Because, and if one leads from purpose, there's no limit to how far you can go. Of course, you've got to identify your vision. Like I said, I initially said my vision is to leave a legacy that prepares our young women and girls to navigate a very always changing global landscape. So one needs to identify their vision, because this is also, of course, vision is the emotive force that drives everything else in a leader's life. And it's the most most potent motive for all the actions that you are going to do. Identify your purpose. One, I need to do this. And what is the vision of that purpose? What do you intend to bring into the world with that that purpose? You need to know and that, of course, articulate your vision, mission, and values to and let the world know that these are non-negotiable. This is what I want to do. And of course, you set your goals and how you are going to reach that. You know, women are blessed with very high emotional intelligence. So as an upcoming woman leader, one needs to harness her sixth sense. And of course, they need to hone in on their emotional intelligence, on their empathy, compassion, and care, and survival instinct, as demonstrated by the 6 women leaders that I mentioned regarding the COVID-19. And of course, they need to embrace the unique capabilities and strength. And, you know, we all have our own unique capabilities. So one needs to identify her unique superpowers, as you said. Instead of calling them soft skills, we call them superpowers. So one needs to identify her superpowers and clearly articulate and leverage those in the role that they need to take. The final thing is to raise one's profile and to strengthen those relationships with colleagues. And of course, to develop strategic thinking here is very important. And one needs to stay alert and receptive to opportunities, different approaches of thinking, different perspectives of looking at opportunities, challenges, and of course, emerging issues in the area that one is trying to lead. So finally, I just want to emphasize on this. The old adage that a lady should be seen and not heard is totally outdated. As a woman, if you need to take a seat at that table, if you need to become a leader, you need to demonstrate courage by living your unique style and to approach your unique style and approach as a woman. You need to embrace your power of voice. You need to voice out. You need to take a stand. You need to express yourself so people understand where you are coming from. You need to give your perspective, and you need to be more self-affirming, and of course, take pride in the value that you can create. And that can only be done if you articulate yourself.
You know, there's so much that came out of that piece as well. And for me, I find it so difficult to understand that these attitudes are clear and present still around being seen, not heard, male leadership, macho, you know, these kind of things. It's just not how I'm built. But I recognize that these things exist. This is such old school thinking, and we all have to do something about this. And I really admire the passion that you talk with, because I think that what you were saying there, first of all, is that there really is a mindset first that transcends a lot of the bias and the barriers that have been there for young girls and women. Say, you know, get your mindset right first, that you can be a leader, you do have leadership skill. Then you can start to build that passion and purpose and the vision that you want to plow moving forward, supported, as you so rightly say, by the right skills, the strengths, the kind of resilience that you're going to need, because you're going to need it. And I think, as you pushed in at the end, they put in at the end there, the networking and that strategic thinking element, you know, learning from others who have done this and really creating a wide network is going to be so beneficial as they move forward within this. And I would say that it's been an enlightening conversation for me. I've made copious notes as you've been going down, which I'm going to do. If I've got paper everywhere already in my paperless office, I've got paper everywhere. And I love the fact that we're now talking about superpowers, right? Now, that's what it is, the superpower of women in leadership and what they bring to the table, which is different and which is provable and working. And we can show that and evidence it through COVID-19. So as we come to the close of this, Justina, what are the sort of 3 big points out of everything that we've talked about that you might want to reinforce in terms of the power and importance, or the superpower and importance, of female leadership?
Yeah, I just first of all want to say that I've never understood why women's leadership has not been appreciated in the public sphere, because, for example, as women, normally we bring the children into the world, we nurture humanity. In the home, we plan the budgets. We know what the family can eat according to how much income the family has. So we plan the budget so that that family can survive. We also mediate sibling rivalries when our children fight, so that we know we come out with a win-win situation. So but somewhere along the line, I've never understood why then we find that in the public sphere, there are more men in leadership than women, when these women are the ones that nurtured those male children to become the leaders that they are. But anyway, on here, I'd like to start with my first point is that of character. If I don't know if you've ever heard of General Norman Schwarzkopf, the American general who led Desert Storm. He once said, "Leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character. But if you must be without one, be without strategy." You will see that from time immemorial, women leaders have been more inclined to demonstrate limitless strength that is founded on the values of compassion, humility, and of course, strength of character, as indicated by General Norman Schwarzkopf. My next point is that women have advantage in leadership as they possess many of the requisite traits to be excellent leaders. All that women need to do is to embrace their natural leadership talents, which include, of course, I have said limitless inner strength, natural instincts, and of course, natural wisdom. As guardians of humanity, I've got to bring this back again, like I talked about families, how women raise families and eventually raise humanity. As guardians of humanity, most women possess heightened emotional intelligence. And we've seen in recent years how emotional intelligence has been hailed as the new science for relationship, the highest predicator in employment or in the workplace. So women have that naturally as mothers, as guardians of humanity, as the ones, the majority that have to bring up humans into this world. So this emotional intelligence that is natural in women connects them to the needs, concerns, and hopes of their communities and the people that either they lead or the people that they look after in their homes, the children. Sometimes a woman can tell before a baby can speak. When the baby just cries, a woman would know whether that cry is to change the nappy or it's a cry because the baby is hungry and needs to be fed. So women have this natural instinct of feeding into the needs and hopes and of course aspirations of the people that they lead or look after. And this makes women adept to resilience and leading in crises such as the COVID-19. And the third and final point is that, again, I'm going to go back to COVID-19. If there's anything that has come out of this pandemic, for those of us like myself in the feminist movement, it is that 2020, the year 2020, of course, and the onset of COVID-19 will go down, undoubtedly will go down in modern history as the time when the power of female leadership was brought to the fore. The onset of the coronavirus the onset of the coronavirus has demanded all the strength, the natural instincts and natural wisdom that any world leader can master to influence and manage how the world populations respond and adapt to the effects and disruptions of the pandemic. You see that, so when you look at the pandemic, the COVID-19, that the top 6 countries as I have already indicated before, are led by women, which are those countries that have managed the pandemic better than any other country that is led by a man. See, this is because these women leaders have utilized their sixth sense, of course, their soft skills or superpowers and empathetic approach. You did mention empathy as one of the important things to tackle the spread of the pandemic. This is an approach which is a marked departure from the male mode of operation and has resulted in completely different and better outcomes for those countries that are led by women. This is because to tackle this pandemic, these women leaders have gone above and beyond their call of duty. As I say, they bring humanity into the world. They've gone above the call of duty to protect their countries and their populations. They have brought to the public sphere what most women or mothers, let me say, would do at home to care for a sick child or a sick member of the family. And they have used these skills, which gave them the capability to care for their own children or family and loved ones. They have multiplied them to give to and to protect their countries and the world populations.
Wow, Justina, I have learned so much, and I am now going on a new learning journey as well behind this. The last 3 points here around character, I think that brings it out absolutely beautifully. And, you know, one thing that struck me as you were talking there was a word we've not used yet, but is fundamental to the argument, I think, which is ego. And I think the ability to put the ego to one side with some of these female leaders that you've talked about, the politicians who have really proved leadership through the pandemic, is something that many male leaders have found quite difficult to do, that perhaps are more traditional, more pride driven. I like to think that some of us, though, are a little bit more kind of modern in our approach. But you know, when I was thinking when you were talking, some of the male leaders who have been held up as strong leaders, what are the traits? The traits are emotional intelligence, empathy, lack of ego, as well as being able to do, you know, make the decisions. It's exactly what you're talking about. So male leaders themselves can learn or maybe can unlearn and relearn new skills from this more equitable kind of leadership team or board around them, as you were saying at the beginning. And that's where the traits can be nurtured through the organization. And we have to learn from 2020. The superpowers of female leaders have really come out for all to see. And I'd like to thank you very much for joining me for this, for sharing this journey, sharing the challenge, and sharing kind of the hope for the future. I'm sure that many people watching this would love to get in touch with you and buy the book as well. How do they do that? And we'll make sure it's on the screen at the end.
I'm going to show the book once again.
There we go.
Whether you can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, you can find it on all Amazon sites across the globe, and also in most of the top bookstores. It is there. It is also on Kindle and other ebook platforms, which is most affordable for a lot of people, especially students. And yeah, so they can find the book there. And to reach me on most of the, on almost all the social media platforms, I am just at Justina Mutale. And for my foundation is the website is Justina Mutale Foundation.com, justinamutalefoundation.org. We are trying to merge the two now, but yeah, it's JMF Leadership. That is on Twitter, and also on Instagram is JMF4 Leadership. But if the easiest way is just to either Google myself, Justina Mutale, or Google the Justina Mutale Foundation. They should be able to find me. And of course, to Google the book, The Art of Iconic Leadership.
There it is again. Good one. Excellent. Yes. Don't worry, we'll put up the link for that as well. And Justina Mutale, thank you so much for joining me. There's so much insight that has come out of this. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Thank you so much. I'm highly honored. Thank you.
Thank you for joining our Guest Practices videocast. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel through the link below, or check out our website to access more in our current series of expert interviews.